We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, Majority Report.
The fun half, folks.
Fun half. Fun half. Oh, yeah. Let's do this one. This is pretty funny. Trump was on Fox the other day with Rachel Campos Duffy. I feel like she's asked this question of him multiple times, right? In multiple interviews. This is not the first time she's asked him this question. And, but she followed up April 15th. I guess this is a week ago now, but we had somehow missed it. Here's Trump answering about the Epstein files. Remember, these were released, except for they weren't released.
Right. They were released as a photo op for some right-wing weirdo influencers, like binders that said Epstein files.
Of stuff that had already been released.
It was all released. In fact, it was more redacted than stuff that had already been released.
Indeed, yep.
But this, to be fair, they did bind it. And so it was more of like a collector's item.
Exactly.
Here is Rachel Campos Duffy. What just fascinates me about this is like the level of obsession the right has with Epstein. And I suppose some people on the left as well, but the level of obsession and the conspiracy behind it. And, look,
They moved on to Diddy. It's legitimately, they moved on to the P. Diddy stuff because they don't really care about the substance of it.
Trump's implicated in all
because,
stuff.
right, if they were consistent...
But that's what I'm saying. It's fascinating because they were so hyped up. On the day they were releasing that, I think I was on Piers Morgan's show.
Yeah.
And all the right-wingers there were like, finally, Donald Trump's doing it. I told you he would do it. This is going to be amazing. Blockbuster. And, Benny Johnson was all like hyped up about it. And then it was just a nothing burger. And they still don't pursue it. Here is Trump. Look how easy it is to shake a Fox News reporter off of the scent of a story.
Jeffrey Epstein. ¿Nos puedes dar un update?
Yeah, I would say just release it. He was somebody that was, I guess you'd have to say, notorious. Mm-hmm. And I would say release it. And I did release the full Kennedy files.
Pause it for a second. Wait a second. I would say release it. Well, A, why don't you say release it? And B, who are you saying this to? You have the ability to release it. He's just about to say in the next breath, I released the JFK files.
He's a pundit. Don't you understand? In some ways, he has ultimate authority. In other ways, he's just calling balls and strikes like he's on a talk show.
I move like a cat. I'm one thing, and then I'm another thing.
He does not move.
Go back to...
Release it. He was somebody that was, I guess you'd have to say, notorious. Mm-hmm. And I would say release it. And I did release the full Kennedy files. People said, well, maybe not everything. And I said, if anybody has a problem, go to the office. We gave them an office address, and they can look at every single piece of paper we have and other files. And as you know, the January 6th and all of that, we freed the people. They were treated so badly. There's never been, there have been some pretty bad instances, but there's probably never been anything like what happened with the people from January 6th, who were largely, and there's always exceptions, but largely great patriots for this country. And so many people were happy with that. I did that, and I let them out. I gave them their freedom.
Okay, what?
How did we get there?
That's amazing. And Campbell stuff, he's just like, oh, this is great. Epstein files? There's files are interesting because it's weird. Like you can use them on your nails.
Yes.
You can use them on a jail cell. Like what?
They call that a homonym.
And then think about isles. That's like, I've been to islands, right?
Well,
That's like
has he
Isle.
been to an island? We don't
Well,
really
not
know.
that island.
Not that
I
island.
hear that's a big story, actually.
He said in 2020 when Ghislaine Maxwell was getting sentenced, "I wish her well," frankly. Do you think that that had something to do with the fact that Trump and Epstein had a relationship? There was leaked audio
What?
of Epstein saying that they were friends, and
I never said that.
Maxwell's alive and may have some actual information on
What?
someone
I
like
doubt
Donald
it.
Trump.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's funny that you say Maxwell. Whatever happened to that coffee? Maxwell. People still drink that? That coffee, Maxwell? I like coffee. I mean, I don't drink coffee. But you know what drinks I do like to drink? We had an Easter celebration, and people had drinks there. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing how he gets away with this.
I mean, the whole right-wing media ecosystem, like the Epstein story, because it is something that drums up people into a constant state of conspiracism where they don't like challenge power. You could direct people towards like a story that's more substantive about Epstein, like the fact that it's very likely that he was associated with Israeli intelligence, given Ghislaine Maxwell's father's
That's what our
ties to
legal system
Mossad.
judged, yeah.
Yes, and United States intelligence, the fact that he had close relationships with world leaders and could have been operating a blackmail operation on that front. Like that's the power analysis where you can direct conspiracism towards something that's productive. But the reason is like they just want them paranoid. And to think about liberals as groomers or as people that are like so
Well, that's what I'm
immoral.
saying. What about trans people? You said something about Epstein, but what about what?
But that's why they're on the Diddy thing now. They just completely abandoned it, and they didn't even process the fact that Trump is closely associated with Epstein because it didn't fit their preconceived
Or
narrative.
Musk, for that matter.
They-
And
right.
Kimball Musk.
They like that now. The Diddy story, which you may not know, but like he's a musical artist.
No, he's
that
a
was
music guy. No, I know that.
running a sex abusive operation for many years involving Hollywood celebrities, and now they're on that thing.
Hollywood.
Because it's Hollywood.
It's much safer.
Yes, it's safer, and they don't have to deal
This
with
is
it.
all the QAnon energy, and there's a weird thing.
I
in
say release the files on P. Diddy.
2016, Epstein was kind of not as prominent as he was even like in 2008 when the Lolita Express stories about Bill Clinton were coming out, because there was a truce, I think, between Clinton and Trump that, hey, this is on both of us. Let's not talk about it. But eventually, like, yeah, the guy or died in prison, whatever happened. And now it's really suspicious. So they had to kind of address it with that QAnon energy. But now they're, like Emma said, onto something much safer, which is Hollywood.
Hollywood. We're back there.
I also wonder what's going on with QAnon.
It's sort of this stuff now.
Well, there it is. I'm sure we'll get a follow-up from Campos Duffy, who incidentally is married to a guy named Sean Duffy, who happens to be in the, Trump administration as a transportation secretary. So
Did she? That's
small world, isn't it? I can't believe it.
They couldn't pick another host to
Oh no,
interview
I
him?
picked the host.
Not
I picked the host. That's okay. I picked
right.
the host.
That's
That's
okay.
fine. Huh. We gonna play this Schulz thing?
We should.
Okay. This is the guy Andrew Schulz who was on there like talking about wanting to privatize Social Security at one point. He I don't know. I haven't seen that much of his show, but sometimes they say some stuff that's interesting. At least some of the co-hosts did, and that with that billionaire guy.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen his show except for I've seen him on Joe Rogan, so he's in that universe,
But
right?
he wasn't that clip, or maybe you weren't here that day. We played that clip of him with that. What's that billionaire's guy name?
Was it Sachs or Calicut or Palpatia? Chemath Palpatia.
Yes, Chamath Palpatia. And they were asking him about his comment, or that was where the comment of like the Biden people never got back to me.
Right.
All the money I gave. And I've seen follow up on that, and it is fascinating. It actually came up with like Ezra Klein was on with him, and it's a fascinating exchange. Maybe we'll talk to Ezra about it because I found it fascinating. But nevertheless, is this on Trigonometry, that show?
Yeah, so prepare to get triggered, everybody.
Oh my God, here we go. This is going to drive me crazy.
But what's so shocking is how shallow this analysis is. But that's kind of what.
Am I going to get triggered by this?
Yeah.
Because if I don't want to watch it, because I can't. If I get triggered, my back's going to go
You're a
out.
sensitive lefty.
The sides switch so much. You know, when I was younger, like Democrats were cool. They were getting their dick sucked in the office. They were like, right? They were like supportive of like hip hop music. They said, do whatever you want. Like, we don't want to be in your bedroom. They were cool with gay people. Like, it was cool to be a Democrat. Now, conservatives got 3 baby mamas. The president got 3 baby mamas. He's getting pussy left and right. Right? He's cool. He's the one saying, say whatever the fuck you want. So now conservatives have become Democrats. So I don't think I've changed. I just like the dudes that get pussy and say whatever they want.
Dudes.
So it's you want me to be a Democrat again? Get some pussy. Tell me to say whatever I want. I'm there.
That's what the politics is. Tell me to say whatever I want.
Comedy, baby.
It is really, I mean, it's just like, I'm triggered by this.
Yeah, me too.
I really am triggered by this.
What we like to do here at Trigonometry is bring in comedians that will pander to our sensibilities and call it a joke.
It is so moronic. Now, I know, we're supposed to say the R word now, that it's legal, unfortunately.
It's both legal and cool to say the R word and some gay slurs. Why not? Those are the material gains we're getting under Trump.
What I also love is that Schulz seems to have like aged in reverse. He's like, what is it? Benedict
Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button. What I thought was cool when I was in junior high, I still think is exactly the same cool level of coolness.
What? Having 3 baby moms? Getting laid. He's got a 12-year-old's mindset. That's why this is part of the stuff.
Do you think that he would appreciate a woman who is president who keeps getting laid?
That's
all
what
the
I'm
time?
trying to say.
Of course not.
Of course not. Of course, like, listen to what's implicit in this. It's that Trump gets pussy, Kamala doesn't, obviously, right? Or whatever. Or like back in the day, Obama was the cool guy, and then with the culture changing, he's gone with it as well. But underneath all of it is this idea that the coolness is also tied to masculinity and how much you're sleeping around. It doesn't make any sense.
Dark Soul says, I sleep in a race car bed, a moment with Schulz.
Yeah.
But putting aside that for a moment too, understand this happens it feels like it happens like every 5 or 6 years where the right wing tries to convince themselves that they are now the cool anti-establishment. I mean, this happens all the time. It keeps getting recycled and recycled and recycled. 20 years ago, it was, I'm politically incorrect. And now it's like, I'm politically incorrect. It's just that we have a different word for it. I can say the R word or whatever, and I don't care. I mean, the Andrew Dice Clay existed. This is all like just rehashed. This is like literally what the reactionary mind does. They repackage the old and existing hierarchies as being counterculture.
Right.
And this is like, Nick Gillespie did it when he was the free market Fonzie, and he sort of aged out of that. And now there's like a whole new generation. It's the exact same thing over and over and over again. And if your politics are shaped by, I know he's sort of half joking, but he's really more like 3/4. No. He's more like 1/8 joking.
It's funny because it's true sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just I know it's the dumbest way to talk about politics, and maybe he's just trying to avoid what his politics are. But I believe that he may have been a Democrat for those reasons, because he still seems to have the depth of thought that he had then, and sometimes you get stuck in that.
Yeah, he's a Democrat because he's a child of affluence from New York City and didn't want to be a Republican because I was probably pissing into the wind a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but this whole campaign was them saying Trump opened with saying that Kamala Harris is only in this position because she's had sex with the right people. So you can't sleep your way to the top if you're a woman. But he's also referring to Clinton when he's talking about getting your dick sucked in the White House, not Obama, because You think Obama would have been able to get away with having 3 baby mamas, as he refers to it there? I mean, come on. The racism and the misogyny that's underlying all of this is just so obvious, but they feel emboldened now.
Every one of these guys in the sort of like content, Rogan adjacent content thing did like 3 days of content on that porn star who had sex with 100 men in a day, being like, how horrible is this? How depraved. And now it's all how great Trump is because he's had sex with multiple women. And I mean,
sometimes not consensual.
Yeah.
Sometimes, according to what the courts have said, you were found liable for sexual assault in some of those instances, which is so damn cool.
Also, the free speech thing that is harder to sell now that people can get roughed up by immigration enforcement for saying something bad about Israel.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when was the
We could say the R word. It's just you can't say the P word.
Yes. When was the last time conservatism was cool? What, you want to say like Reagan era when everyone was snorting coke? Like most of the time, progressive thought is cool.
Honestly,
because they're at the cutting edge of culture.
They go through this all the time. I mean, they go through this all the time. Even over the course of the past 20 years, this is like the 3rd iteration of this, where it's cool to be a conservative now. I mean,
you got a shelf life because we see Donald Trump's approval rating dropping like a stone because none of this stuff most people are going to be on board with. This is a minoritarian party that's flexing right now because they got back into power. But good luck with that, Andrew Schulz. Good luck with like hinging your politics on what's cool in any given moment.
Listen, everybody's trying to get on the right stuff now. It's like a waiting list. They got on that app early. Oh, boy.
I didn't even know what the right stuff was until you gave me more context.
Right.
Exactly. Dave from upstate, but have you looked at how Trump's sex life and slurs have made our economy better? The Millrind, 1987, Gordon Gekko, Wall Street. That's when being a conservative is cool. But conservatives thought like Stephen Colbert, when he was doing the Colbert Report, they thought that he was on their side.
They don't have media literacy.
No, it's just
It's never been cool.
Constant. This is like even like embedded in Breitbart too. The constant like sort of understanding that their worldview is anachronistic.
Yeah.
And the self-consciousness and the desire for it to be cool. And the reason why they insulate themselves in this manner. I mean, the reason why like the Daily Wire guys sit around a circle once a week smoking cigars in in a fake like study is because it's the only way they can feel cool.
Yeah. Is
to surround themselves. They do the same thing down at the mothership. It is a closed loop. I know a lot of people, sort of like somewhat adjacent to that world, aware of that world. It is a closed loop where they sit around and tell each other that they're cool.
And it's all men to a degree as well, because like they also want it to be this insular discussion about about masculinity without involving femininity.
Cool.
Right. But
it's not, we don't keep you out because you're a girl. But we just happens that girls aren't cool.
Yes, obviously that's just how it works that way. But like this is an unfortunate thing that this whole podcast ecosystem is doing, and it's resulting in what we're seeing of this extremely like misogynistic backlash. Is they are redefining these very negative qualities that are associated with patriarchy as masculinity. We need to more positively define what masculinity means, because these guys are like saying, oh, it's cool that the way Donald Trump has treated women as sex objects at best, and in other instances as victims at worst, and that's like the way that we should be looking towards a man, or like the way that Bill Clinton behaved, where the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal, he threw that young woman under the bus after exploiting her, and Hillary Clinton was complicit in it.
Yep,
and he's saying these two things are cool examples of coolness. Yeah. Like, that is what is scary about this, I think, and some of this moment where it's like, no, those were exploitative, deeply disturbing moments, whether it's Donald Trump and how he's treated women, or whether how Bill Clinton did it. No coincidence, by the way, both buddies with Epstein.
That was the one based thing Matt Iglesias said briefly before he changed, wipe the Etch-a-Sketch on his opinions, was that Bill Clinton should have resigned for philandering in the office.
Dan from Columbus reminds us that in 2017, Paul Joseph Watson from InfoWars declared conservatism the new punk rock. That happens every like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't around in the 80s. I can't imagine conservatism was cool in the 80s.
Oh, it was cool, man. Did you see Alex B. Keaton? He was the guy everybody wanted to be. On Family Ties.
Republicans were cool in the 1860s, and then for a little bit of time
They were
afterward,
cool.
but that wasn't conservative.
Greed is good.
Yeah, it's just never happened, guys.
Even that, they don't have the media literacy to know that Gordon Gekko is supposed to be a satirical character.
No,
These
he
are
wasn't.
still
No.
These are the guys that
No,
love
satirical.
Wolf
No,
of Wall
he's a
Street.
good guy.
Yeah, and
Also-
they don't get or American Psycho. A Bit Fruity, great podcast by Matt Bernstein. A shout out to that show. Did a great episode about that guy. You know, the Ashton, what's his name, that went viral with the Saratoga water and okay, whatever. But it's just like how there's this new brand of masculinity on like the influencer space where it's like about, you know, perfecting your image in this almost Patrick Bateman way, which in the past was considered a sign of sociopathy. But now it's like this manicured thing with faceless women serving you food and drinks and stuff. But it's a little half-baked.
I'm
what
younger than
saying.
Andrew Schulz, and I remember the Democrats being not friends of like the music I liked. I remember Eminem having lots of lines about Tipper Gore. Like, I
Oh, yeah. Tipper Gore and Joe Lieberman were leading the charge on getting
Parental advisory stickers, right?
parental advisory stickers.
Also,
I mean, that's why Lieberman was put on the
yeah.
on the ticket, is because he was supposed to be like the representative from the moral majority, essentially, to inoculate Al Gore from Bill Clinton's, you know, it wasn't the exploitation of that woman. It was just like the sexual luridness.
Yes. I just have to correct myself. Ashton Genty is the running back from Boise State. It's Ashton Hall. That's the guy.
That's good. Also, MC Rove was on the Republican side of things, so they were pro-rap back then.
Yeah.
How am I
Actually
the
wrote-
only one that's seen the Saratoga ice bath video?
I don't even know what
No idea
you're
what
talking about.
Someone help me out.
TikTok?
It's like the biggest viral video of last month. Whatever, but
Maybe on Emma's algorithm.
I guess.
Where's that? Oh, yeah. Do we have more Hegseth?
Oh, I just put a new clip in. You don't have it in the print.
Let's see. I don't see it.
It's new to the sheet. It's not in your printout there.
I don't have that sheet. I only have a printout one. So where is this? Pete Hegseth, put it in the IM.
I have it here. So Pete Hegseth went on Fox and Friends this morning to try to defend himself, and here he is talking about how he refuses to meet with a specific kind of crowd. He's more into the chugging crowd. You'll see what I'm referring to in a second.
Politics, I guess.
Mr. Secretary, do you think you take this job, you come in with war experience and all your great background, do you think there's a lot of people who don't want you there, and there's some type of deep state forces that want to make sure you don't stay there?
They've come after me from day one, just like they've come after President Trump.
Pause it for
And
one
I'm not
second. I just want to be clear. They came after Pete Hegseth from really day negative like 40 or 50. Like the moment that the idea that this weekend Fox News host, whose only executive experience in running anything were two organizations that were incredibly small, and in at least one of them, he created a budget deficit twice as large as the budget itself in the course of a year, and had to be basically removed from both positions amid both a sense that he didn't know how to manage these things, and also some reports of him being not appropriate with the women in the organizations, on top of which there was reporting from former coworkers at Fox News that he couldn't stay sober. And then by the time we got to day one, that was 4 days after he promised not to drink on the job, which, if you have to promise that, is indicative of a problem.
Bit of a concern.
And now, of course, the deep state forced him to
add his wife
and his
brother.
brother-in-law in a group chat on an imminent a military mission, just to catch you up. Go back.
You think there's a lot of people who don't want you there, and there's some type of deep state forces that want to make sure you don't stay there?
They've come after me from day one, just like they've come after President Trump. I mean, I've gotten a fraction of what President Trump got in that first term. What he's endured is superhuman. It's not hard for me to do this job. I know exactly why I'm here. To bring warfighting and the warfighting ethos back to the Pentagon, to rip out the insidious ideologies and not compromise and not back down. To bring in new press voices into the Pentagon, which we've done.
Pause it for a second.
Reestablish
Look,
standards
I
and accountability.
cannot stand analysis where you sort of like project onto someone their state of mind. But in this case, I'm going to make myself an exception because I've actually been in like a situation similar to this after having drank a little bit. Back in the day, I used to do a lot of MSNBC hits, and there was occasions where it'd be like the hits at like the 9 p.m. show or the 10 p.m. show or something like that. And I get a babysitter and I'm going to make it a social evening. And then I realize like I socialized a little too much and you got to go. And it's this thing where you're looking down and then like, I'm back in, I'm going back in. I'm just going to get into a rhythm. I don't know. That's me.
It could be.
I'm not saying it's him. I think he has a lot more experience at this than I do.
Whoa.
Go back a little bit. He's much less slurry than Kudlow was back in the day. I could say that, though.
I mean, it is, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, although we know that he did start his days with a few gin and tonics, according to the New Yorker.
Warfighting and the warfighting ethos back to the Pentagon, to rip out the insidious ideologies and not compromise and not back down. To bring in new press voices into the Pentagon, which we've done, to reestablish standards and accountability, to not tolerate leakers, to 100% operational control of our border, to get rid of trans lunacy in the military. We haven't backed down. See, here's the thing. A lot of people come to Washington and they just play the game. And it's you punch their ticket and get along to go along. And, start doing Meet the Press and going to the Council on Foreign Relations and spending time with all the new cocktail sipping crowd. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because President Trump...
Pause it. I'm here to chug cocktails.
Those weak-ass liberals in D.C.
Sip a cocktail.
Sip.
I guess I'll tell you something right now. I'm not Apple. I chug my cocktails.
Chug, 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 chug.
We've got in the mission control in the Pentagon, we have a funnel. And it is a 12 beer funnel.
Yeah.
If you can't do it, you get out of the room. That's what we do. That's what I brought. Look at this. See this sideburn? I keep this sideburn long and this one short to remind myself I like to party.
I like it. He says he's bringing fighting back to the Pentagon.
Do you know why this is long and this one's short?
Yeah.
Because 3 nights ago, I got so shit-faced blind that I fell asleep, and some of the guys came in and they shaved this sideburn and they didn't show that one. And I got to wear this until it grows back. That's the name of the game.
He comes in with just like
that's the rules.
A peanut Sharpie on his face or loser on his forehead.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
He's boofing with Kavanaugh.
Yes. I don't even know if Sam. God forbid you know what boofing is.
I don't know what that means.
He's boofing right now in this interview. That's why he's so excitable.
Operational control of our border, to get rid of trans lunacy in the military. We haven't backed down. See, here's the thing. A lot of people come to Washington and they just play the game.
Oh.
And it's you punch their ticket and get along to go along. And, start doing Meet the Press and going to the Council on Foreign Relations and spending time with all the new cocktail sipping crowd. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because President Trump asked me to bring warfighting back to the Pentagon every single day.
Right.
That is our focus. And if people don't like it, they can come after me. No worries. I'm standing right here. The war fighters are behind us. Our enemies know they're on notice. Our allies know we're behind them. And that, in this dangerous world,
How many more
for the
platitudes can
American
we get in
people,
here?
is what it's all about.
I've been on 2 bases over the last 2 months.
And Paz, I just want to make it clear. I will give everyone our war plans. I'm not doing this cocktail sipping type of like, oh, just the war plans for the people who need them. I'm not afraid.
He was going to say cocktail drinking and changed it to cocktail sipping.
sipping.
I don't know what that means.
He's got cocktail on the brain.
Cocktail sipping and just like drinking like whiskey and clear liquors and other type of. I'm not.
It's on the toilet.
I'm not hanging around with the wine crowd. Okay.
Yeah. Hard liquor only.
It's more like it's go ahead, give it to me again. You ready? I tried to time that. Oh boy. Al Conniption. Hegseth talks the way R.M. Brown does through AI voice at the end of his video. He says, subscribe on Patreon. Ask
Come on,
Matt."
man. You got something to say?
Jerry at the beach. Love the idea that there's a deep state conspiracy to make the military gay and trans. Someone like Pete Hegseth, who would pound the drums of war at the drop of a hat, is an imminent threat to the military-industrial complex. DJ Ducor. I love when Uncle Sam comes back and all the kids have to explain what boofing and the Saratoga Springs Ice Bath are. Laugh my ass off.
Hey, Russ brought up boofing. I was thinking it.
It was
but
from
Russ said
a
it.
Senate confirmation hearing of a Supreme Court judge. I feel like it, you know.
But he referred to boofing as something differently. I think the term has
That's
evolved.
what he said.
To now.
That's what he said.
He lied. Yeah, he was lying
liquor-soaked
at the time.
tampon
Everyone
in an
except for
orifice.
It doesn't
Sam.
necessarily need to be a tampon, but it's alcohol through the butt. What did Kavanaugh say? What Kavanaugh say it was?
He had boofing in his calendar, right?
Yeah, boofing with.
Boofing with Du Bois.
And then he said it was just drinking, binge drinking. Like, okay, boy.
It's unbelievable how much that guy lied in front of people who knew that he was telling the truth.
He makes Hegseth.
Knew that he was lying.
He makes Hegseth look sober.
Yep. Smoke Frank Blunts. Please tell me you saw the Democrats post of Pete Hegseth being an alcoholic. I did not.
Yeah, they respond, like he tweeted something out, and the official Democrats account, which seems to have been taken over by somebody that understands social media, posted like a photo of like an iPhone lock screen that was really blurry. Like it was like what you look at when you see your phone when you're really drunk. So they're doing all right over there.
Bill Ackman, boofing with Squee.
Right.
Oh my God.
That was the exculpatory calendar, apparently.
My calendars.
Let's take this phone call. They snuck in when we had the phones open briefly. Calling from a 775 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh man, I'm on the Majority Report. I'm the new Pope. I'm Pope presumed innocent, the umpteenth.
Okay.
And I was listening to you yesterday, watching that Day of the Jackal footage where they took out the Pope. And you guys are talking about how the Antichrist might be J.D. Vance and could be Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believe that there's a way to touch people and make them think about their voting through their Bible. And I know Easter's gone by, so that opportunity's gone. But here's some things that really point to Trump.
Hey, can you talk into your phone a little bit more?
Yes, sir, I can.
That's much better. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, well, if people are interested, get out a piece of paper and write these down. You can use them at Thanksgiving at least.
Okay.
In 2 Thessalonians, it talks about him being the lawless one, this guy, the Antichrist, okay? and that's in chapter 2. And go and look it up. They can go check this out. In Daniel chapter 7, 8 through 11, and in chapter 8, verse 25, it talks about him being a boaster.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think, have you had a personal experience where you have shown Bible verses to a Trump supporting Christian who then said, oh, okay, I guess I don't support him anymore? Have you ever had an experience like that?
I've made them think about it, and it's got them thinking about it right now.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's the kind of thing you're not going to be able to take this to them and put it right up in front of them and you know, give them this, and they'll be open to it. It's because there's a belief in it.
Yeah.
When people have these beliefs in these mythologies and stuff, it takes over their whole head. But if we can get them to think about what they're voting for through their Bible, I'm all for it. I don't want to take people's faith away from them, but if they can look at their book and go, oh, geez, I made a mistake, you know, then that's a good way to do it, I think.
I mean, I'm certainly open to it. I will have to admit that when I go home for Thanksgiving, that's not going to work for me. But
Well,
I would imagine.
But for some people, it might.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know what you should do? Go into the Discord at majoritydiscord.com and provide those citations. And if people want them, they can grab them there.
Okay, I don't know how to do that. I'm not a tech savvy guy.
Well, just
listen,
go.
I used to look, man. I was an ordained minister in the 1970s. I used to go through all this stuff. And when you start talking to people about this, it makes them, they go, whoa, you know, and they get up on their hind legs. But if you can take these verses and align them up with the guy that they're looking at and worshiping, then that's something that can work.
All right.
You know,
well, maybe
it's like they have things like he received a head wound. Okay, well, the Antichrist in the Bible, it talks about him getting a head injury.
Interesting. All right. Well, listen. I appreciate the call.
Look,
I gotta jump.
I'm not trying to push Jesus.
No, I get what you're saying, and I think there's something to it. and I appreciate the call. I just, you know, during the George W. Bush years, we had a lot of that. Like, you know, use the Bible as, in my experience, there's a lot of those people. They have already made their determination, and I don't think they're terribly impacted by Donald Trump being an impure messenger. Now, it's possible some of them could come to believe that he's the Antichrist, but I just don't think enough are going to, because a lot of their pastors are telling them something different.
Well, I mean, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene basically celebrating the death of the Pope yesterday, which is kind of like they're hearkening back to old school anti-Catholic, like Southern I don't know, bigotry on that front, but also tapping into, there's like a conservative Catholic strain that really didn't like Pope Francis because of his reforms and his more pro-LGBTQ stance, etc. So I don't know, like that's for me just an example of how American evangelicism in particular, which is a lot of the people that we're trying to reach here, are obviously, I feel like a little bit more just working backwards from their conclusion.
Yeah, supporting Trump is they're going to church.
Sam's exhausted toilet. Another important verse for Bible people in Leviticus. It says you aren't allowed to lay with another man. That means it's okay as long as you are both standing up. There you go.
Yes. Good point.
Breaking. Let's go to a journalist in Washington, D.C. at the White House press briefing, really asks a tough question of, what's her face? Levitt?
Democracy dies in darkness, folks.
That's right. Here we go. Let's see what this journalist has holding her feet to the fire.
Is this the first time a journalist has been beanied in the press room?
Many of the news organizations that are represented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by 2 different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland Man over and over again. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on, following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you can comment on that unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure.
Well, pause it. Wait a sec. Wait. I'm going to parse out this question. There's been a lot of hoaxes. I don't really have a actual question to ask, but can you give a preemptive defense of my being here, please?
Yeah.
Is that what the question that he's asking is?
What did the Maryland Man hoax have to do with the can you please protect or say something nice about these corporations end to that question? I'm just giving him some constructive feedback.
No. He's saying that all the hoaxes are done by the mainstream media.
Right.
But people who have sat in his seat, which is the new media seats, have taken criticism. I mean, the best part of this is like, by I believe 2 sources, because it really occurs to me that Tim did not go too deep into this. But do we have this?
Yeah. We have her answer.
We have her answer?
There he
Let's
is
go.
over there in the corner.
The companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you can comment on that unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well, we certainly welcome diverse viewpoints in this room, which is one of the reasons we have you in here, and there's many new faces in this room in comparison to the previous administrations. We want to welcome all viewpoints into this room. We welcome unbiased journalists who really care about the truth and the facts and the accuracy, and you rightfully pointed out the Maryland Man story, which I, from this podium, when The Atlantic published it, on that very first day, I came to this podium and said, this is wrong. The press in this room have this story wrong, and we have seen more and more evidence come to the table that we have had all along. We were always right. The president.
Wait,
was always
pause
on
it
the
for a
right.
second. We've seen more and more evidence come to the table that we were right. Like, wait a second. There was a time in this country where you needed to provide evidence if you were going to detain or arrest somebody or send them to a foreign prison. I don't even know if there was a time where we were sending people to foreign prisons. But why does evidence have to drib drab out and come to the table? Where's the evidence?
That comes out in due
It was
process.
the bull's hat. Judge Paulazina stated that the evidence was based on vague, uncorroborated allegation from a confidential informant. And I've done jury duty. Confidential informants, not the most upstanding individuals.
Right. Also, first of all, one of the confidential informant that said that about him claimed that he was in New York, where Kilmeade Garcia has never been. So that's part of why they didn't use
Okay,
that.
but the bull's hat, Emma.
That evidence was presented, and then they still issued the withholding of removal. The judge did, meaning that they did not find that evidence compelling. So when he says that it's been adjudicated by 2 judges, no, it hasn't. Or to the extent that it has, the final judge's claim was that he should stay in the United States, and said specifically if he's going to be deported, the one place he can't be deported to is El Salvador, and they did that.
Emma.
Yeah.
Everything you're talking about was not in paragraph 1 of the story he read.
You're right.
So I don't like. This is the thing.
I don't know. If he would have read lawfare, the allegation seems to stem from double hearsay in a document authored by a later suspended police detective. That's the very first line, so probably could have got that one to his desk.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go to
Not lawfare.
Lawfare. I read it on Breitbart in just the first paragraph.
Right,
And so that's
and
all
Daily
that I
Mail.
know.
Gang member,
Yeah.
His favorite source is the Daily Mail.
All right, let's do a little more.
come to the table that we have had all along. We were always right. The president was always on the right side of this issue to deport this illegal criminal from our community. And it is despicable to see the media continue to refer to this individual as someone who is just a peaceful man living his life in Maryland. This was and always has been an illegal criminal, an MS-13 gang member, and a designated foreign terrorist. And the administration maintains our position to deport these individuals from our community.
It is shocking the amount of lies that are going on there. Oh, I'm out of the amount of lies that she is spewing is absolutely shocking. Shocking. He's not a designated terrorist. He's just not.
Because he's not in MS-13.
Even if he was in MS-13, like
insane to call gangs terrorists.
These are not terrorist organizations. The
Right.
word has meaning.
But they're trying to use terrorists as a way to expand their policing power.
If you are deporting
Yeah.
900 of these so-called terrorists, how is it that they have just come along, like, no guns, no gunfight? Yeah. Do you think that we wouldn't know if there was a gunfight with these terrorists?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we wouldn't have seen the plans they have for the terrorism that they're committing?
Because truly, like, she said three things: illegal, a criminal, right? Like a criminal illegal, basically, MS-13 gang member, and terrorist. Those last two are just plain patently unproven, probably ludicrous. The first one is what they're pegging it on, which is just he's not documented, and that's what they have to stack on the other two because it's not popular if it's just that.
And also, if he was in this gang and participating in criminal activity, wouldn't there have been a record of that or instances of that during his period of being in the United States since he was a 16-year-old boy? They don't have that evidence.
I've got to jump.
Yep.
Emma's got this for the rest of the day. We'll see you. I will see you tomorrow.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Yes. I did think this was funny, though. Matt, can you put up this tweet just because we're on the topic that you sent? We had covered Tim Pool's meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu last week, and Jewish Insider reported on that meeting. And there were just some curious phrases in it, like, or just pieces of information where they recount how that conversation went. Pool expressed concerns about increased anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the pro-Trump podcasting space, according to sources in the room. Pool famously had Kanye West on his podcast, and the rapper walked out mid-interview after Pool pushed back against anti-Semitic comments. Responding to Pool, Netanyahu said, that is the reason he invited the group to meet with him, which included Dave Rubin, by the way, and somebody, I think, from The Federalist, Bethany Mandel, Sean Spicer.
We should befriend Nazis lady.
Yes. But then this is what's fascinating to me. Responding to Pool, Netanyahu said that is the reason he invited the group to meet with him. Pool asked if there was a Qatari op to manipulate social media algorithms to make anti-Semitic and anti-Israel episodes appear to receive an outsized number of views, and in order to incentivize podcasters and YouTubers to produce more anti-Semitic content. Netanyahu, however, was non-committal in his response, saying only that it's possible. The prime minister emphasized in the context of Qatar, as well as Iran, that Israel and the U.S. share the same adversaries. Iran, Netanyahu said, wants to destroy both the U.S. and Israel. Now let's pull up this tweet from Benjamin Netanyahu's son, who is notably a fan of Tim Pool's. Yair Netanyahu, who, as his father helps commit genocide, has been in a Miami high-rise living it up.
He's a 33-year-old, so, you'd think if your country that you'd want to help, I guess, the Holocaust, but he'd rather be watching Tim Pool in Miami.
Did you know this, that the woke right podcasters that only ask questions never ask any questions about Qatar with a money face? I bring this up only to say that Tim Pool has been previously victimized by foreign money that has gone into his bank account. Notoriously, Edward Gregorian, the fake, I guess, European financier who ended up being the Russians, gave Tim Pool and Dave Rubin, who was also at that meeting, interestingly, millions of dollars. These are two men that have been shown to be very willing to take foreign money, or at least not ask questions when millions of dollars come in to supplement their business. So I do find it curious that as reported in Jewish Insider, that the conversation even centered around the idea that there's a foreign government, Qatar, that's funding the other side. Could that have been the pretext to have a conversation about which right-wing podcaster might be receiving money from another foreign government, perhaps with its prime minister being in that very room? I mean, it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible. Also, when they refer to Qatar, they're referring to Al Jazeera, which, yes, is in part backed by the Qatari government. But Al Jazeera has been like basically the only outlet on the ground in Gaza, and no longer even. They've been kicked out of the West Bank, too.
Also, just not a great comparison. The problem with Israel interfering in our elections is, A, the degree to which they do it in our democracy, which is insane, and B, that we subsidize their entire project for them to do so. We don't do that. Qatar does not get the aid from America that Israel does.
Right.
Why would we care
But the
as much?
fact that they need to even bring up that there's another they're claiming that there's another foreign government that's artificially inflating pro-Palestinian content, as the United States government is currently engaging in suppression of pro-Palestinian speech to a degree that they are literally locking people up for it. Yeah. We are supposed to believe that the tech companies that just bent the knee to Donald Trump are willingly allowing content on their platform that is being artificially inflated by a foreign government to support the Palestinian cause. There is no way that these folks can claim, without just the mass disinformation in the form of these right-wing podcasters potentially, that any other government has the influence that the Israeli government does on our politics, because this Israel, you can't view this as just any other foreign country. It functions as our colony. It functions as our intelligence outpost in the Middle East. It is an extension of the United States. Qatar obviously is not. And that's how state suppression and propaganda works. Go ahead, Russ. Do you want to say something?
No.
Oh, I thought I heard you. All right. Well, with that, we'll read some IMs. Edward Gregorian, Emma, what the fuck? Am I not real to you? Sorry.
I keep saying this. You just message. Like, Tim Pool got checks, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Draw Nathan. One should always thoroughly stretch before attempting to perform the Covington smear. Yeah.
Those Covington kids embarrass themselves. I'm sorry. I think they... yeah, we don't need to go relitigate that. But
I don't remember the story well
they're
enough.
the ones that got into the sort of shouting match with the Black Israelites. I don't know. And then there was like a guy who tried to get in the middle of it. It's just like that became a thing at all when, like, frankly, it was just general American insanity confronting each other. It shows how, I think, much they have to scrape the barrel for grievance.
Mr. Melancholy, confidential informants have always given impeccable evidence, Matt, 100% of the time. Company Townie, I know what you're talking about, Emma. I love Matt Bernstein's podcast, and the one guy who rubs the banana peel on his face was fascinating. Yes, that's what I was referring to. Colt Dog, Tim Pool. Yes, that's him. Set the Lit PhD. Was that John Fugelsang that just called in? As a war on terror era Christian, I can verify Sam's point on the Bush years and the futility of using scripture to convince Republicans. I'm never going to say that, like, conversation in that way is unproductive. You never know, right? You never know. But I would agree that for the most part, it's difficult to try to hypocrisy shame your way out of getting people to be conservative, because how you limit radicalizing, like, far right views like this is basically by having a party that is for the working class and runs on broad material benefits for people so they can overcome some of those preconceived notions that they already have.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think subscribing to religious doctrine to the point you think there's like an antichrist is basically signing up for mental illness or something approximating it with how much it's going to detach you from reality. And it shouldn't be encouraged.
Yeah. Your Town is Next. Matt definitely saw the video Emma's talking about. It's most commonly called the morning routine video. Ashton, the lifestyle influencer in Miami, showing off his Patrick Bateman-like schedule.
Oh, when he gets up at 3
yes,
in the
yes. That's what I was referring to. Good. I'm not insane. B. Dander. says, "You're not crazy, Emma." Okay, there we go. Thank you.
I'll be honest, I'm so used to, I remember seeing them. I don't need any more of this kind of content where it's basically elaborate ways of people congratulating themselves for being potty trained. Just, I don't know.
But there is this level of like antisocial. I don't know. The influencer space on that front.
People are lost, and they look. I mean, it's a shame that, like, you know, they look to guys like that or like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Mad Scientist. Hi, Sam. I'd like to give a shout out for the Wellesley organized academic workers. They are in their 5th week of striking, and the administration has refused to engage in good faith bargaining. The admin is coming up with creative ways to hold international and financial needs students hostage to get some folks to scab. It would be grateful if you could send them some attention. Well, there's some attention there, but we will look into it and put it in the Wellesley students that are striking. Hall monitor populists. I think you have to convince conservatives their conservatism is actually harmful to their own self-interested motivations.
Yeah, I mean, that's better. Like, hey, if you have 2 degrees of separation from a Proud Boy, we're going to send you to, Scheinbaum's dungeons in, Baja California.
Let's do something. Can we pull up that Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet after we play this number 12? So Pope Francis passed away, less than 48 hours ago, less than 24 hours after meeting with J.D. Vance, who media sources can neither confirm nor deny is the Antichrist. Still looking into that as we speak. Or at the very least, just somebody who maybe didn't purposefully kill the Pope, but just by his very presence sapped him of his life force. We're joking, obviously. The Pope, this was a Pope that actually tried to do some good things in the world. And it doesn't mean that everything he said, like towards the end of his life, there were some reports that he was saying some offensive slurs, but that happens as you deteriorate for some people. Broadly, he was more open to LGBTQ rights than past popes. He was the first non-European pope in 1,300 years. Like, you got to go back to the 700s to find somebody who was not a European. Like, he was from the global south and represented that perspective. He had some Verso books is recirculating some of his critiques of capitalism that came out. And most notably, towards the end of his life, he was really supportive of the Palestinian people in this struggle as they lived through this genocide. He would FaceTime the Catholic Church in Gaza every day. Here's some footage of that, of him doing so.
Salam alaikum. حبيبنا se nos amato papa I appreciate your appreciate acá venía a saludar a algunos bandidos vos el baba este es baba
So there that is. I think we have a pretty good sense. But yeah, he spoke about peace. He spoke about also the brutality of right-wing fascistic immigration policy. He's been critical of the Trump administration's anti-immigrant policy and was really vocal about that as well. This was odd, though. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted this out, and I found this fascinating. Right after the news announced that he died, saying that there were major shifts in global leaderships. Evil is being defeated by the hand of God. Now, what do you think she meant by that? She's also referring to, I guess it was the Schwab guy that passed away. So that taps into this
Step down from the World Economic Forum.
Okay, so it's a little bit more vague. It could have been in reference to that, but it's
obviously both.
It's obviously both. you've been saying this, Matt, as somebody who grew up Catholic, that there's like a whole strain of conservatives that thought that this Pope was almost like the Antichrist to a degree. Is that what she's tapping into?
Well, I mean, she's a evangelical, right? So I
Right.
think there might be a longer type of clan adjacent type of Catholic hatred going on there.
That's what I think it is.
But I mean, that's why I said the thing about believe in the Antichrist and that sort of stuff is I know Catholics that have never trusted this Pope, think he's a communist or things like that. And I'm sorry, like those people have, not only are they detached because they're very religious, they're detached from their own religion. And it is really alienating. And you wonder why people retreat more into sort of pathological conspiracy theory or these sort of things where all of a sudden it's like, I'm to the right of the Pope on major cultural issues and look forward to him being replaced by a more conservative Pope. That's a sickness in Catholics. It's the same kind of sickness, I think that Zionism represents, which is just like right wing, sort of pro control, pro hierarchy, and anti-reform. Like it's crazy to see Russell Brand, baptized like 8 months ago, coming out and saying reform sometimes brings the church down to the state control, and it's just like you people are all insane.
Well, I mean, late converts we know are sometimes the most religious and dogmatic. J.D. Vance converted to Catholicism in 2019 to bring it back to him and his visit with the Pope. But I do think that there's a little bit of this as well. Old KKK style Southern anti-Catholicism is possibly what she's also gesturing here towards as well.
And also, this Pope came from like an intellectual lineage within the Jesuit tradition in the Catholic Church called liberation theology, which was very big in Latin America, like in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. There's been mixed reporting about whether or not how much this Pope resisted the Argentinian dictatorship, and there is some suggestion that he might have, given names over to the dictatorship. But suffice to say that, like in the geopolitics of the Catholic Church, this Pope represented a more left-wing strain of that tradition and that history. So I think there's also, like a global political divide within Catholicism that this Pope was on the more left side of.
Right. Even with regards to Argentina, he says like all that stuff I think is worth investigation. Be very interested. But he's also the person who publicly said we should wear sort of robes of penance for that sort of stuff, which is, it's a small thing. There's a lot of money behind the Roman Catholic Church. They could maybe do some reparations. But,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not perfect, but he also did these symbolic gestures matter of like washing the feet of people when he saw them as a way to evoke Jesus, kind of reducing the level of ornate opulence that the Pope residence and the Pope car, the Pope outfits, whatever, showed. But yeah, the part about how it's difficult to use scripture against people making right-wing reactionary arguments is like belied by the fact that you have this strain of thought, which is that this Pope is fake or a false prophet or whatever. Catholicism says that the Pope is supposed to be the direct communicator with God. And Catholics are supposed to respect that. But that's not the case. So you can see there that even in its most at its most fundamental level, it's difficult to use people's own religious rules against them when they're not really living by those religious rules. They're just using them as a tool in their toolbox to justify their pre-existing political beliefs for the most part. So there's a prime example of that. What should we get to here? We should do one, right? Peter Welch? No? Really encouraged to see this. Senator Peter Welch of Vermont, the junior senator of Vermont, after Bernie Sanders, went to visit Mohsen Madawi inside of immigration detention. He was taken when he showed up to his immigration hearing in court. He had known that it was likely that he would be detained because of his pacifist speech, speaking out against Israel's slaughter in Gaza, even as he wrote publicly about the scourge of anti-Semitism, even as he engaged with Jewish and Israeli students on campus at Columbia. It didn't matter. He's now being locked up for his speech. And we unfortunately haven't seen enough of this. Chris Van Hollen kicked this off by doing a really good thing, going down to El Salvador to try to see if he could meet face-to-face with Kilmeade Abrego Garcia, confirm that he was still alive. And now you have members of Congress going down to El Salvador, drawing attention to that case, but other cases as well, including the hairdresser who is still locked up in this torture chamber, who was picked up presumably in California. But there's also, of course, the student activists who are being targeted, and just academics for daring to speak out against
tourists,
the genocide. Right. And so I want to see all of this. Like, we need to be seeing way more of this. I expect extremely little of the Democrats who represent New York State in the Senate, but it still is just incredible to me that neither Chuck Schumer nor Gillibrand are. I will be shocked. I will be shocked if they visit Khalil in prison.
No, they won't. Van Hollen has already gotten attack ads from AIPAC. Any member of Congress in the Senate that takes Israel money will not be. Here's a prediction: they will not be courageous or righteous on this. They will be cravenly and say, "Why are we focusing so much on this? Look at the markets. We should be focusing on how much the Dow Jones is dropping."
It's really important that we see more of this stuff. So I wanted to make sure we played a little bit of of Peter Welch's conversation with his constituent for Mike's attention.
I'm here with our friend from the Upper Valley, Molson, and we've been having a nice talk, but I want you to have a chance to explain to people how you're doing and what you hope to accomplish, and how is it you're staying so positive despite your circumstances?
Thank you for the visit. It really means a lot, and it reassures me of the support that I have from you and from the Vermonters as well, my people, the people of Vermont. I'm staying positive by reassuring myself in the inevitability of justice and in the deep belief of democracy. This is the reason I wanted to become a citizen of this country, because I believe in the principles of this country.
And you told me you were preparing for your citizenship exam that you thought you were going to take when you were detained. One of the questions you were going to answer, just explain that about rights.
One of the most important questions, the most important rights is the Bill of Rights, which includes free speech on the top of these rights, freedom of assembly, freedom of press, freedom of having religion or not having religion at all. And I learned also in this basically test that I had to study for, that the freedom of speech and religion and assembly is guaranteed to everyone in the United States, which is part of the foundation of this country.
Well, I want you to also, Secretary Rubio said you're a threat to foreign policy. Can you just tell us what you were hoping for and how you've worked with some of your Jewish brothers and sisters as well as Muslim brothers and sisters?
My activism, so they are, basically he is describing being anti-war as anti-Semitic. How could that be possible when my partners, most of my partners at Columbia's campus and beyond, are Jews and Israelis? My work has been centered on peacemaking. And all what I am doing, I am being a human. My empathy, as I mentioned before, extends beyond the Palestinian people. And my empathy extends to the Jews and to the Israelis. And my hope and my dream is to see this conflict, if one might say, to see an end to the war and end to the killing, to see a peaceful resolution between Palestinians and Israelis. How could this be a threat to anybody, except the war machine that is feeding this?
It would be good for everybody.
Well said. All right, I think that's a good place to stop it. But it's just incredible. That's an incredible anecdote that he talks about, how he's was studying the Bill of Rights, and how the right to free speech and to political speech is supposed to be foundational in this country. So much so that the right that's now locking up pro-Palestinian demonstrators or anti-genocide demonstrators for their speech, that they're using it in the same breath, in the same political movement as they're doing it, right? So they understand the value of it. And then they preemptively will claim to be the arbiters of free speech as they do things like this, which is why, from even a political matter, it is so important to do, and for other lawmakers to follow suit with what Senator Peter Welch is doing, which is to expand on the moral clarity of standing up for people like Mohsen and for everybody that is being locked up right now for their political speech. And it's not by looking at polls and seeing what works, because we know now that based on, I think it was Pew Research or Gallup, but I think it's Pew, that the majority opinion right now in this country is negative views of Israel. And that's like 50% of Republicans age 18 to 49 and over 70% for Democrats in that same cohort. So like all of the folks that want to lead with polling first to see like which battles the Democrats need to fight for
are insincere,
right? Because if they were actually engaging in that exercise, they would see that standing up to the Israel lobby would be an absolute slam dunk for them. And it is clarifying. It would clarify the issue for people who hear that the right cares about free speech, but may not hear about these other stories or may not be that engaged in politics. I'm just appealing to your own self-preservation, you idiots. But if an appeal to your morality isn't enough.
We're pissing away the Bill of Rights for Israel.
Yeah.
Like we're in a way, generations like that would, other generation would find shameful. And we have this thing of, it's the same way Republicans act like we're supporting women as they take away abortion rights.
Yep.
And the problem is our foreign policy, our bipartisan foreign policy, particularly vis-a-vis Israel, is an apartheid policy. And so, yes, when somebody like Mohsen Mandawi works and models Israelis and Palestinians working alongside of each other, that is against our foreign policy, because our foreign policy is to remove Palestinians so Israelis can have more land. And you know what? It just so happens that all of our bomb makers get a nice big profit off of that too. So yeah, it's nice, but this needs to be way more. And I want to follow the tightrope of applauding everyone who does this and saying, where's the senator going down for Rumeysa Ozturk?
Yeah.
Massachusetts. What's going on, Liz?
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren. It's why has she not gone down and supported her there? Same thing again with the senators from my state, with Mahmoud Khalil, which is the biggest story on this front, arguably.
Just a child just born. He's in prison.
Yeah, crickets. And I'm going to give, of course, Bernie Sanders and AOC some grace because they've been on this tour across the country during this period. I imagine their schedules are very full, and they've both been vocal on this.
And they mentioned it during the speeches, at least.
They did. They should still be. I mean, AOC. Do we have this poll? Maybe I just sent it to Sam. I'm going to send it right now. There's a new analysis here of AOC's favorability within the state of New York. If we could just go to the quote tweet and then go back to the one I just sent. AOC has the opportunity, I think, to run for president or to run for the Senate. But there are new numbers that just came out from Siena Research showing her poll numbers in the state. Her net favorability, go to the quote tweet and then even the quote tweet of that. So we'll just have to go back, right? So go down to her favorability compared to Schumer's. Plus 14. Plus 14 in New York State. Hochul's +1. She's climbed after she's been fighting Trump on congestion pricing. I mean, this negative polarization is saving this woman. She was like kneecapping congestion pricing, then was kind of forced into implementing it, and now she's defending it against Trump and has gone up by 11 points in favorability. Schumer's -10. Trump is only 5 points worse than Chuck Schumer in a blue state, New York State. And AOC is +46 among Democrats, Schumer's +14. This is a real case for her Senate race, and she can make that case by going to visit and highlighting Mahmoud Khalil. Let's go back to some of these other results, too. When you see her favorability among black voters in the state, +37, +24 among Latinos. And the Bernie's campaign didn't do as well with black voters, and that's part of what was a hard thing for him to overcome. And then you had Democrats that capitalized on it, specifically more Southern conservative black
States
voters.
Democrats don't win.
Right. And this shows that she maybe has the capacity to even overcome that, right? And if Bernie were to run today and he was 10 years younger than he is now, I don't think that he would have had those same problems, honestly, that he did that first time around with some of those voters, because of people are more used to Bernie's policies and they've become pretty common sense for, I think, a lot of Democrats. But AOC has the opportunity, if she chooses to run in New York, to defeat Chuck Schumer. But if you see these numbers and expand on them on the national level, if that holds, not that level of support from black voters, but that level of trust that, you know, if that expands across state lines, that's very good for her and puts to bed a lot of these nonsense claims about the popularity or lack thereof of progressive ideology.
And I would say puts in stark relief how unpopular being a shill for Israel is. Richie Torres +2% among black voters, because all he does is talk about anti-Semitism as he defines it, criticism of Israel.
Exactly. Wow. Chuck Schumer's -24 with Latino voters in New York State.
I mean, maybe it's getting through to some people that having the leader of the Democrats in the Senate of this country telling the press that his job is to keep the left pro-Israel, like, this is a farce. We don't have a democracy. These people need to go. And this is, and I do appreciate, back on the Bernie AOC thing, they're telling people to run for office, because these people that are currently in there cannot be trusted. Even though, we need to swamp Congress with a new set of people that are much more severe on this issue, to pull those people into line.
Yeah. That is a funny result for Richie Torres. In that broader poll, he's at 9% below Delgado, who was the lieutenant governor, and Torres being down there. That's a bad result for him. Like, I hope, I mean, it would be fascinating. I hope he goes through with running for governor and then maybe has to vacate that seat. Perhaps it opens up the opportunity for Jamal Bowman to run again, honestly, because he was in the district over. But
we're just checking to see here if Jeffries was in there, because that's kind of a funny. I mean,
my guess is this is polling for two races: potential Senate and governor.
Okay.
Governor, because Torres is is likely running for governor. Delgado is too. Yeah, so that's my guess. Is this is New York polling for the governor's race coming up and a potential Senate race.
By the way, don't give Hochul too much credit for the position that she's just found herself in, being the champion of congestion pricing, because she's still aiding and abetting the assault on people's free speech with regards to Israel.
Absolutely. And I would like to know what Delgado's positions are on that front, and if he's actually a difference with and because we know Richie Torres is probably worse than Kathy Hochul on this issue, although she's pretty bad. Is Delgado an improvement on that front? That might differentiate him in a primary, and perhaps he should be clear on that, because if this is just the field and they're all kind of the same type of politician, I mean, I think Hochul on name recognition is and incumbency is gonna walk away from it with it. We love our incumbents here in the Northeast for some goddamn reason, specifically incumbent governors. They keep getting reelected.
Also, shout out Michigan, the Senate race there. Of course, we are for Abdul El Sayed.
Yep.
If Haley for Michigan wins by launching her candidacy, saying that she would support unconditional military aid and weapon sales to Israel, being an apex support candidate. If she wins, it's a huge problem, and I won't be quiet about it.
Cole from Michigan, AOC 2028, Swamp the Swamp. Well, she's leaving her options open. I mean, 2028 is also when Schumer is up. So any decision that she makes, if it's on the presidential or Senate level, is going to likely try to happen at the same time. And it's smart for her to continue to leave her options open. Randy Goldberg, China has canceled $13 billion worth of soybean orders. They made a deal with Brazil instead. There you go.
This whole thing where the Trump admin conditions people to think this short-term pain we're about to see get more and more acute is going to lead to some long-term benefit is for rubes. What we're going to have is a recession and worse and worse conditions for people unless we take control of the state and direct investment to social needs and not capitalistic ones.
Yes, but we will make Brazil great again.
Yeah.
I mean, China out there saying if you cut a deal with the United States of America, not that like there is any on the horizon because Trump is lying about all that shit. But if you were serious about it, say Japan, we're going to retaliate against you. And guess what? Look at a map. Which is Japan going to go with there?
Boom, boom, biddy. Slurs are okay if they start coming out when you're old. Is this all slurs or just gay slurs? I'm just saying there's a certain generation of older person that sort of loses their inhibitions as they get older. I'm not valorizing the Pope. I'm just saying that within the context of popes, he wasn't the worst. Dave from Jamaica, Matt, great point. If you're doing scripture debate, people are pretty close to the edge.
Look, it's worthwhile being familiar with the stories and the morality and lessons, but to say like these are signs of an antichrist, I think is what are we doing?
Nassau County spokesperson, phone banking for Zora on this Wednesday and Sunday. Go to his website to sign up. Yes, yes, yes. Parade of idiots. I've been seeing stories of Medicaid fraud coming from DeSantis. Yeah, this is actually crazy. Let's do something really quick on this, and then we'll read some IMs and get out of here. This came out in the middle of the show, but it appears that Ron DeSantis, as governor down in Florida, may have engaged in some Medicaid fraud. Do we have that link from the Miami Herald in our chat? The title is "The $10 Million Steered to Hope Florida by the State Was Medicaid Money," document shows. You will recall that it's up a little bit, probably an hour ago. Yeah, okay. Here we go. You will recall that Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, but previously the governor, was responsible as the chief executive of a company down there, a healthcare company, for Medicare and Medicaid fraud. The DOJ won felony convictions against his company, and it was fined $1.7 billion, at the time the largest healthcare fraud settlement in U.S. history. Rick Scott was a part of that. Now, he was the chief executive of that company and is now the senator from Florida after previously being the governor. Now, the current governor, Ron DeSantis, seems to have taken some lessons from his predecessor. The $10 million steered to Hope Florida by the state was Medicaid money, document shows. The $10 million that Governor Ron DeSantis' administration diverted to a state-created charity last year consisted of Medicaid dollars owed to state and federal taxpayers, contrary to what the governor and other officials have publicly asserted. Can we scroll to the paragraph, please? 3 years ago, lawyers working with the state drew up a settlement agreement that said Florida's largest Medicaid contractor, Centene, whatever.
Centene, I'd say.
Centene, overbilled taxpayers $67 million and change for medications, according to a copy of a draft agreement obtained by the Herald Times. That's the exact amount DeSantis officials settled on with Satine last year. But instead of returning all $67 million to state and federal coffers, they sent $10 million of it to the Hope Florida Foundation, a charity overseen by First Lady Casey DeSantis. The money was then sent to two nonprofit organizations that aren't required to report how they spend their funds. Those dark money groups later gave $8.5 million to a political committee overseen by DeSantis' chief of staff in a series of transactions that some Republican lawmakers believe was illegal. How Medicaid is allocated, which pays for healthcare services for the poor, is highly regulated. The document contradicts statements by DeSantis and state officials that the $10 million was a charitable contribution by Centene, separate from what it owed to the state. DeSantis said earlier that month that the $10 million was in addition to what the state were getting. Although I would think that they would need to find a paper trail to corroborate that claim, right? But unfortunately, these are dark money groups. There's not necessarily the disclosure that would be required in other instances. But it seems like, Florida officials first became aware that Centene owed the state money in 2021. At the time, Ohio, Mississippi, and other states were reaching settlements with the Medicaid giant after it overbilled for prescription drugs. And it looks like they found a way to get around it, potentially. That the $10 million that was sent to this Hope Florida organization run by DeSantis' wife might have literally been that Medicaid money that was owed. I don't know what Florida is except this just giant scam state at this point, but seems like the Republicans down there are learning from one another.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scam, a scam economy, as Bender calls it, is a submerged but very real thing that Trump speaks to. A bunch of people that, and I think the political class generally is rife with people like that.
Ron DeSanctimonious. So that's taxpayer money. That's supposed to be going towards people on Medicaid, which is the health care for folks that are the poorest in our country.
I think we might have that cherry on top part thing. Let's just try this here.
Republicans and Governor Ron DeSantis. This time, questions about a state settlement.
When you do settlements, you can try to get as much money as you can, but this was in addition to what they were getting. This is kind of like a cherry on top where they agreed to make an additional contribution.
House Republican.
So show them.
Normal.
Even House Republicans want transparency on this. Actually, keep going on this. This is good.
Want more transparency about why $10 million in settlement cash was transferred to Hope Florida. Some questioning if it was legal.
I don't know what we can do, but obviously we were, at the very least, need more accountability on what that $10 million was being used for and how on earth ACA felt justified in transferring those funds to a separate agency's DSO.
The money stems from a settlement between the Agency for Healthcare Administration and the private healthcare company, Centene. Thursday, in a hearing, things between lawmakers and the agency got tense when asked about it.
We have no idea what that money was to be used for, and we have no idea why we did it. That's not acceptable, Secretary.
Mr. Chair, I think it's unfortunate that we are succumbing to some of these unfortunate attacks.
Hours later, leaders of various departments posted a video online to defend the charity and criticize the questioning. They did not, however, address the settlement money.
I think it was a shameful approach to be able to get into this conversation that distracts us from the ultimate mission, which is helping young people achieve their full God-given potential. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get back on track.
So, we just need to talk about charities and private contractors and that sort of thing. They're all farces. It's all a joke so rich people can avoid taxes. These sorts of things like Centene, these private contractors government works for, they're the ones that do fraud.
The government waste is all on that end.
It is not the bureaucrats that are civil servants for like 40 years. It is these sorts of people that are giving cherries on top
Yeah.
to Ron DeSantis. Thank you, sir, for firing us. Here's apparently. And this has been always true. When Harry Truman did the Truman Committee during World War II, it wasn't, let's go to Washington, D.C. and see all the people. No, it was to go into factories that the United States was contracting with and seeing how they were screwing us. But instead, our dumbasses have put one of those contractors in charge of the investigation into fraud.
The idea that recipients of Medicaid or Social Security or Medicare are the ones engaging in fraud, the idea that they have the ability to engage in fraudulent activity on that level, like basically the max that we're dealing with is maybe somebody whose grandmother passed and they're still collecting checks for their Social Security or for their Medicare, or perhaps a small amount of money is going out to somebody who's already passed away, although there's very little evidence of that.
And they claw that back all the time.
And they claw it back, and that's what you're supposed to, like, part of the Social Security Administration, that's their job. The overwhelming amount of the fraud comes from the providers, where maybe they will bill for services that they didn't end up providing. They will overbill so that they can get more money from the government, and they have teams of folks that are there to make a profit for these companies that make these determinations about whether or not they can bend the rules, as in the instance with Rick Scott, and as the instance with these other companies. And so that's where a lot of this comes from. And it appears the ACLU is saying this, that the DeSantis administration may have used that money to go towards Hope Florida, again, run by his wife, of Medicaid money to run ads against the cannabis legalization bill that was coming up in Florida, which also, by the way, benefits for-profit healthcare if they aren't already in on cannabis. So there's more to look into on that front, but just another obvious examination or story about corruption down there in Florida by the Republicans. All right, guys, we're going to read some IMs and then get out of here. Jimmy Hoffa. Hey, Matt, yesterday you said Ukraine should sue for peace, but you refused to admit that... I didn't mean to...
No, go ahead.
That Russia
refuse to admit what?
Is a dishonest actor with over 80 peace talks before the second invasion and now breaking every ceasefire to continue targeting civilians the same way Israel and the IDF does. Let me just say, I do not think that's comparable. Even though this is an illegal, aggressive invasion, that we're witnessing a slaughter of like historic levels in Gaza.
I think it's true. Look, I can just cut to the chase. I think it is true that Russia is Mendation. I don't think that changes one whit the desirability to put Ukraine on a footing where they can sue for peace and are loudly proclaiming certain things. I wouldn't do what Trump does to say give away all these concessions beforehand, but the fact of the matter remains that wars end through negotiations, and this one, the Ukrainian people were not for it, and now they are. So you tell all those people actually there that they're wrong instead of talking to me, because you're not losing me. You already lost me. You're losing Ukrainians.
Yeah. Live, laugh, Luigi. Trump should send Vance to meet with Putin. The war would have been done that very day. Yeah, that's funny. Dobby Wan, part of the insidious nature of conservatism is the idea that every proclaimed progressive policy that seems like it will be good for society is actually a smokescreen for full communism or insert nightmare scenario. How do we get past that? The
problem's not in the people. Like, people want good things. The problem is in our political organizations, which are conspiracies against what people want.
I'd agree. Congressional baseball fan. I would like to clarify my comments from yesterday. The point was that autism is highly correlated with hereditarily. Likely neurodivergent people like our parents were never diagnosed because we were considered autistic. What were considered autistic traits back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s were much more limited and specifically targeted at those with higher support needs. Looking for environmental causes to autism is pointless, as it seems highly likely to be a genetic adaptation that is naturally occurring and has occurred since ancient humans existed. Turns out the pattern recognition, for example, was a desirable trait to have while trying to avoid being eaten by lions. I would also like to state that my parents were not to blame for why I am trans. I was in fact born this way, even if it took me over 30 years to find language and ability to accept myself. Well, congressional baseball fan, don't worry about it. I think we were saying the same thing about that. That it's not like learned behavior in that way. It's most likely hereditary. Omega, Ron DeSantis doing fraud, say it ain't so. That guy hurt people. Of course, he will help them get ripped off too. And the final IM of the day. Jerry at the beach. Yeah, but is AOC going to be able to win over moderate Republicans? Remember, that's the coalition that is going to win us elections, not those radical leftists. Trust me. Thank you, Jerry at the beach. Thank you all. Sam will be in tomorrow. We will see you then.